History tells us that the Roman Empire was the greatest builder of the ancient world. They gave us the Colosseum, the Pantheon, the aqueducts that carried water over mountains. They built systems of concrete and stone that defined the known world. They were engineers. They were masters of logic, mathematics, and brutal efficiency. When their empire expanded, they did not just conquer, they built. And in the fertile Bekaa Valley in modern-day Lebanon, they built their most ambitious monument. They called it Heliopolis, the city of the sun. We call it Baalbek. This was not a minor outpost. For over 2 centuries, Rome poured its wealth and its genius into this single site. The goal was to create a statement, a monument so vast, so imposing, that it would broadcast the power of the Roman emperor to the entire Eastern world, and they succeeded. The temple complex of Baalbek is dominated by the Temple of Jupiter. Even in its current state of ruin, the scale is difficult to process. The remaining 6 columns are the tallest in the world, standing nearly 70 feet high. Each one is a monolith. The stones of the grand courtyard are carved with an intricacy that defies belief. This is the story we are told in our history books, a story of Roman ambition, Roman engineering, and limitless Roman manpower. We see the evidence of their quarrying techniques, their advanced use of cranes, their sophisticated understanding of logistics. Historians and archaeologists have spent decades mapping this process. They explain the use of massive timber frames, complex pulley systems, and tens of thousands of men working in perfect coordination. It is a story of human achievement, a testament to what our ancestors could accomplish with sheer will and brute force. It is a perfect, logical, and complete explanation. Until you look down, until you realize that the magnificent Roman temple, the one that history celebrates, is merely the penthouse, and it was built on a foundation that has no right to exist. This is the glitch. The moment the official story fractures, the orthodox narrative asks you to look up. At the soaring columns of Jupiter, the investigative narrative asks you to look down. At the podium on which they stand, this podium, the massive retaining wall for the temple, is built from stones of an impossible size, and buried within this wall are 3 specific blocks. They are known as the Trilithon. These are not stones. They are geological anomalies, masquerading as building blocks. Each of the 3 stones is approximately 63 feet long, 14 feet high, and 12 feet deep. They are quarried, dressed, and fitted together with a precision that modern laser cutting would struggle to match. The problem is their weight. Each stone weighs an estimated 1,000 tons. Let us pause and recalibrate what that number means. 1,000 tons is not the weight of a car. It is not the weight of a tank, but it is the weight of 3 Boeing 747 airplanes, fully loaded. The official narrative states that the Romans, using their known technology, moved these 3 megaliths from a quarry nearly a mile away. They lifted them more than 20 feet into the air, and they placed them perfectly into a wall. This is not just an engineering marvel. It is a physical impossibility based on everything we know about the Roman world. Our largest mobile cranes today, the titans of steel and hydraulics that build our skyscrapers, would buckle. A specialized, coordinated lift involving multiple massive cranes might, theoretically, move one. But it would be a spectacle of modern engineering, planned for months. The Romans supposedly did it with wood, rope, and men. The math does not work. The physics fails. We are told that they built enormous capstans, massive, rotating wooden drums, wrapped with rope and powered by hundreds of men in treadmills to slowly, inch by inch, pull the stones. But the sheer compressive force on the wooden rollers The friction, the stress on the ropes, the models break down, the ropes snap, the wood shatters. This is the first layer of the glitch. A civilization, at the peak of its power, suddenly displaying a capability that is thousands of years ahead of its time, a capability it never replicated anywhere else in its vast empire. But the glitch goes deeper. You must leave the temple Baalbek. You must walk for nearly a mile to the quarry where these stones were born, and there you will find something even more disturbing. You will find the ones that did not make it. Lying in the bedrock, still attached to the earth, is a stone block known as the Hajar al-Hibla, the stone of the pregnant woman. It is larger than any of the Trilithon stones. It weighs 1,242 tons. It sits there, cut with precision on 3 sides, waiting for a transport system that, according to our history books, could not possibly exist. It is a diagnostic tool, a silent witness that tells us, yes, they truly intended to do this. For decades, this was the largest cut stone on Earth, until 2014, just a few feet away from it. German archaeologists uncovered another and then another. These new blocks are even larger. One is estimated at 1,650 tons. That is the weight of almost 500 elephants. 1,650 tons. The Romans did not just attempt the impossible, they planned to make it the standard. And this reveals the true, terrifying question at the heart of Baalbek. The question is not, how did the Romans do this? The question is, what if they did not? What if the Romans arrived at this site, and found this impossible foundation already waiting for them? This is the point where the official story and the fringe narrative collide. And as honest brokers, our job is not to pick a side. Our job is to analyze the system failure. We are presented with 2 primary hypotheses. Hypothesis 1. The orthodox view. The Romans were simply that good. This hypothesis states that we are underestimating Roman ingenuity, that a combination of brute force, limitless manpower, and engineering genius we do not fully understand made it possible. The proponents of this viewpoint to German archaeological studies. They have meticulously charted the quarry. They have found post holes for cranes. They have proposed complex systems of multiple capstans and rollers. The argument is that the Romans, wanting to build the grandest temple of all time, dedicated centuries and an unthinkable amount of resources to solving this one singular problem. It was a moonshot project. A statement of imperial dominance not just over people, but over physics itself. In this version, the massive stones in the quarry, like the 1,650-ton block, were not failures of transport. They were simply abandoned when the project's funding was cut, or when Christianity rose and the pagan temples were ordered closed. It is a clean explanation. It keeps history intact, but it has critical flaws. It defies Roman logic. The Romans were, above all, practical, efficient. Why expend 1,000 times the effort to move one 1,000-ton block when you could move 10 100-ton blocks and achieve the same structural result? Why place these massive, logic-defying stones in a foundation, where they would be mostly unseen, and then build the visible parts of the temple with smaller, more manageable blocks? The engineering is inverted. You do not build a skyscraper by starting with the most difficult, expensive, and dangerous materials at the bottom, and then switching to easier materials at the top. And then there is the silence. The Romans wrote everything down. They carved their victories onto columns. They wrote manuals on concrete. They boasted about their bridges, their roads, their aqueducts. And yet, for the single greatest engineering feat of their entire history, the movement of the largest stones on planet Earth, there is not one inscription, not one diary, not one manual. There is only silence. A deafening silence. This leads us to the second hypothesis, the one that history does not like to talk about. Hypothesis 2. The pre-Roman inheritance. This hypothesis is far simpler and far more disturbing. It states that the Romans did not build the foundation, they found it. This theory posits that Baalbek is an incredibly ancient site, that a much older, unknown civilization, a civilization with a completely different understanding of physics, built a massive platform here for their own purposes. Millennia later, the Romans, recognizing the strategic and sacred nature of the site and the sheer, flat, indestructible platform it offered, simply built their own Temple of Jupiter on top of it. They built on the glitch. This would explain everything. It explains the inverted engineering. The Romans used their technology smaller stones to build on top of a technology they did not possess, megaliths. It explains the lack of Roman records. They could not write a manual for something they did not do. It explains the logic. The Romans did not engage in an illogical act of hubris. They engaged in a very logical act of recycling. They used the best foundation available. And it explains the stones in the quarry. They were not a Roman project that was abandoned. They were part of the original pre-Roman construction, a project that was interrupted. But this hypothesis, while it solves the logical paradox, opens a Pandora's box of terrifying questions. If the Romans did not move those 1,000-ton stones, who did and how? Let us analyze the evidence as an investigator. Looking at the system itself, the problem is not the history. The problem is the physics. Exhibit A. The tooling. When we look at the stones in the quarry, the cuts are not crude. They are precise. The surfaces are smooth. The channels cut to separate the blocks from the bedrock are surgical. This is not the work of bronze chisels or iron hammers. This suggests an advanced understanding of stone cutting. But the how of the cutting is a distraction from the how of the moving. Theories of lost technology are often invoked. Acoustic levitation, advanced harmonics, manipulation of gravitational fields. These sound, to our modern ears, like science fiction. But are they any more science fiction than the idea of lifting a 1,650-ton block with rope? A system that can cut and move 1,650-ton blocks is not a primitive system. It is a different system, a different technological path. We assume that history is a linear progression. Bronze, then iron, then steel, then silicon. We assume that we are the peak. Baalbek suggests that this assumption is flawed. It suggests that a different kind of knowledge existed. A knowledge that did not rely on the internal combustion engine, but perhaps on a mastery of frequencies. A knowledge that did not burn fuel but manipulated the very properties of matter itself. This is not speculation. It is a conclusion forced upon us by the evidence. When the official explanation rope is physically more absurd than the fringe explanation lost technology. We have a system glitch. Exhibit B. The wear and tear. There is another piece of evidence. The stones of the Trilithon. The 1,000-ton blocks show significant signs of erosion. The softer, smaller stones around them, the ones historians agree are Roman, are in much better condition. This suggests a vast difference in age. Orthodox historians argue this may be due to different types of limestone or different environmental exposure. But the stark visual contrast, where the foundation appears more ancient than the temple built upon it, remains a powerful, unresolved anomaly. Exhibit C. The motive. Why would anyone do this? Why build a platform of 2,600,000 cubic feet of stone? The orthodox view says to support a temple, but this is a circular argument. It assumes the answer. What if the platform was the purpose? What if the Romans, in their religious fervor, mistook a piece of ancient, functional technology for a holy place? What if they found a massive, indestructible, and perfectly level platform and said, "This is a fine place to build a temple for Jupiter"? They mistook a power station for a church. This is the core of the Baalbek glitch. We are looking at the ruins of two different civilizations, from two different timelines, stacked on top of each other and one of them we do not have a name for. We have a word for a system that exists, functions perfectly, but for which we have no explanation. We call it magic, or we call it a technology so advanced it is indistinguishable from magic. The Romans were masters of their physics, the physics of the arch, the lever, and the pulley. But Baalbek suggests they were building on the ruins of a civilization that was master of a different physics, the physics of the megalith. And that is a knowledge that is, for us, completely and terrifyingly lost. This is the function of the glitch files, to act as a warning system. The story of Baalbek is not a story about the past. It is a story about the present. It is a warning about amnesia. We live in a complex, technological society. We believe we are the apex. We believe our knowledge is secure. We believe that history is a simple, upward line of progress. Baalbek stands as a 1,000-ton rebuttal to that arrogance. It proves, in silent, undeniable stone, that a high technology can exist, and then it can vanish. It can be forgotten so completely that future generations will look upon its works and invent fables of gods and giants to explain them. The true glitch of Baalbek is not the stone. It is the gap in our memory. The Romans built a magnificent temple, but they were not the original architects. They were, perhaps, the first archaeologists, or the first squatters. We are left with the ultimate open question: the platform at Baalbek, built from stones we cannot move, using a technology we cannot comprehend. Was it a temple? Was it a fortress? Or was it a launch pad? What were they building? And after they quarried that 650-ton stone, the most ambitious block ever attempted. What system failure occurred that made them stop? The stones of Baalbek do not just question our understanding of history. They question our understanding of us. They are a reminder that the systems we depend on, our technology, our knowledge, our very civilization, and are fragile. They can break, they can be lost, and they can be forgotten.